Howdy folks, Dreadshells here, and welcome back to World of Tanks. I hope all of you are doing well. I want to first apologize for the lapse in content on the channel over the last week or so. I've just been out of the loop, but hopefully I will rectify that here today with showing some gameplay in the AMX 1375, the Tier 7 French Scout, or I should say one of them. The other one being the premium AMX 1357 or AMX 1357 Grand Finals, the Tier 7 premium French Scout. One of you guys requested in the comments of one of my videos either 2 or 3 weeks back, I don't remember sure on the time frame, that I show some footage of this tank in action on my channel. I don't remember who it was off the top of my head, so I apologize about that, but I am making this video for specifically that request. But I wanted to talk about a few things here in the garage and in Tanks GG before I show the footage of the battle, just to explain why I have the loadout of this tank the way I do. First of all, I'm using coffee on this tank, and that's mainly because my crew in this tank is really bad. I never play the AMX 1375. My best French Scout crews are in the ELC AMX and the 1390, which is currently in my 1357. So basically, I don't like this tank enough to want to grind out a good crew for it currently. So that's the reason why the crew is so poor and why I'm trying to compensate somewhat with using coffee. And even with coffee here, we can see that my view range with coated optics is only 435 meters. That will, of course, be a lot better with binocs up whenever I'm stationary. But that, of course, only works when I'm stationary. Also, the main thing that I wanted to talk about with the loadout of this tank that I have the way it is my ammo loadout, and I shoot exclusively 100% premium in this Tier 7 French Scout. And before all of the gold ammo ethic judges scold me for doing so with this ammo loadout, I'm going to explain why I do that in Tanks GG, so let's hop over there real quick. Alright, so here we are in Tanks GG, and I'm comparing the AMX 1375 to other Tier 7 Scouts in World of Tanks. And if you look down at the firepower category, you will see that in the penetration column, the main reason why I shoot exclusively premium ammo in the AMX 1375 is because it only gets 144 millimeters of penetration with its standard AP rounds, which is really bad for a tank that gets Tier 8 matchmaking. And it's only second to the, funny enough, the premium tier French Scout, the AMX 1357, which gets 1 millimeter penetration less. But if you compare that to the Walker Bulldog or the T71, both of the American Scouts, they get 175 millimeters of penetration with their standard rounds, which happen to be APCR. And that's literally 30 millimeters of penetration more than the AMX 1375. And it gets even worse when you look at the SP1C, which gets 180 millimeters of penetration. The LTTB gets 170, and the WZ131, if you're using the 85 millimeter on the WZ131, has 159 millimeters of penetration. If you're using the 100 millimeter, it goes up to 181 millimeters of penetration, I believe. But you might be saying, well, what makes the WZ131 so much better than the 1375? The penetration, while a difference is moderate but not that extreme, well, that's because the WZ131 has something that the AMX 1375 does not have, and that is good mobility. The WZ131's top speed isn't that great. It's not bad. I would call it average. But the AMX 1375 gets the same top speed. But if you look at the horsepower to ton ratio of the AMX 1375, it's really mediocre for a Tier 7 Scout. It's only 20. There's lots of mediums that start to come close to that kind of horsepower to ton ratio, kind of in the 15, 16, 17 horsepower to ton ratio area for that kind of matchmaking. And if you start calculating tier 9 mediums, you will definitely start getting mediums that have really close to that kind of horsepower to ton ratio. So it's really, really mediocre horsepower to ton ratio for a tier 7 scout. Also, the terrain resistances, while not bad, are not good either. They're really, really mediocre. And the other main aspect that I don't like about the AMX 1375's mobility is its traverse. Its turret traverse, and specifically its hull traverse. Its hull traverse is really, really bad, only 42 degrees per second. And if you combine that, something that I wish these third-party site stats would, or stat sites rather, would do is add both the turret traverse and the tank traverse together to get this kind of combined traverse stat. And it's I think one of the worst combined traverse stats of all the tier 7 scouts up here. So it's a really, really sluggish tier 7 scout, and it's not that fast. All that being said, I gotta say that one of the positive aspects of the AMX 1375, which Tanks GG does not show here, is its camo rating. I'll throw up the numbers here for you on the screen as I got them here. The AMX 1375 gets, I think, second best camo rating of all the tier 7 scouts, only second to the AMX 1357. It gets a 17.67% base camo rating, which will almost practically double if you have a 100% camo crew. So that's really, really good for a tier 7 scout. Unfortunately, that camo rating is hard to apply because the mobility of the tank is really mediocre. So if you're trying to get into an early passive spotting position, quite often other scouts, say the LTTB or the T71 or even the Walker Bulldog, they all have better mobility, right? And they will counter scout you and screen you off before you get to your position sometimes. But the other main stat that is the reason why I shoot exclusively premium ammo in the AMX 1375 is that it only gets 36 rounds of ammunition. 36 rounds of ammunition for a tank with tier 8 matchmaking. And it only has 135 alpha damage per shot. And if you do the math, like, and this is another stat that I wish third-party sites would show, is that the total damage potential, right? The stat that if you pinned all of your shots, what would that damage total be? And the AMX 1375 has the worst total damage potential of any tier 7 scout. If you pinned all of your shots, you would only do 4,860 damage. I'll throw up the numbers here on the screen so you guys can see the comparison. It's even worse than the AMX 1357, which does slightly over 5,000. But if you're looking at the WZ131 with the 100mm, for example, that can do over 10,000 potential damage if you pen all of your shells, right? Even if you look at tanks that are kind of in the middle, like the SP1C, the T71, they both do over 9,000 potential damage. Now, of course, you're not going to be penning all of your shots in any of these tanks. This is a hypothetical scenario. But that same argument of you won't be penning all of your shots applies to all tanks, right? And especially this tank, because its penetration is lower than all these other scouts, except for the premium tier French. So that argument is actually even loses more validity, because you'll be penning fewer of your shells with the AMX 1375 if you're not shooting premium ammo than all these other scouts. So the total damage potential will drop even lower than it would for other scouts. So this is the reason why I shoot exclusively premium ammo in the AMX 1375. It doesn't have good pen. It actually has really bad pen, and its ammo capacity is really, really low. That's something that all the tier French scouts share, by the way, as a problem, their ammo capacity, except for the ELC AMX, the tier 5 French scout. The AMX 12T, the tier 6, both the tier 7 French, the 1375 and the 1357, and the tier 8, the AMX 1390, they all share an ammo capacity problem. And those all those tanks, I shoot exclusively premium ammo in it, because the penetration on the standard rounds is not good enough. You can't afford to not be penning most of your shells, I guess is what my main argument is. Otherwise, if you're in a situation where you have to be doing your own damage to try and win the game, you will be handicapped a lot of the time over an average of games. Also, another aspect that will hinder your total damage potential in the AMX 1375 compared to other Tier 7 scouts is that its accuracy while firing on the move is really bad. If you've ever played an AMX 1390, you will know what I'm talking about. The AMX 1375 is exactly, I shouldn't say exactly the same, but it's pretty close. The AMX 1375 is really bad for shooting on the move. So you basically have to be really careful with your shots in this tank if you want to be doing any kind of respectable of damage that you do personally, direct damage that is. So enough about rambling about statistics and why the AMX 1375 is one of my least favorite scouts in World of Tanks. Let's dive into some gameplay on Sand River that I have for you guys. Alright, so here we are on Sand River Assault Defense in a Tier 8 game in the AMX 1375, so it's nice matchmaking for us as far as tiering is concerned. And if you look at the composition of the enemy team and our team, there's a pretty even distribution of tanks with armor, tanks with mobility, tanks with view range and camo rating. So it should be a pretty evenly paced fight. So let's just get started. Now on Sand River Assault Defense, the most favorite position that I like to go to usually is the middle ramp area that's located in G5, G6. From that position you get really good vision along the center of the map as well as the west of the map if you have a really good crew. Trying to be careful there, going over that little dip so I don't damage myself. But you guys can see the really poor horsepower to ton ratio of the AMX 1375 here. The Bulldog on my team was able to poke up here and get to that position there before me, so he got all those initial spots, not me. So since he is content to use that position to spot that area of the map, I don't want to be trying to compete with him for it and be getting in his way, so I decided to come over here and try to harass this A44. And now we have some nice side shots on him. Get a couple of rounds in there. This is part of the reason why going to that position in the ditch, if you're on the attacking team, is a really bad idea. It's really easy to get trapped and pinned down there, and it's really hard for your team to support you if you're on the attacking team. So I know that A44 wasn't going to poke again for me an opportunity to get a shot, so I decided to go for a reload. Spot the T25-2 again there as he's peeking over the D7 dune there. When you're playing a tank without Sixth Sense, as I was talking about before, my crew in this tank is quite poor. You really have to be watching your minimap and be paying attention to where the enemy was last spotted and where they are currently spotted, and kind of develop this real Sixth Sense, as I like to call it. You just have to be a lot more careful and be on your toes a little bit more. So now that it's clear that the majority of the enemy weight and armor and firepower is over on the east side of the map, I decide that it's time to push up here into the backside of the D6, D7 dune and start to put pressure on the snipers that are sitting behind the enemy tank's armor. Here we have a T-34-85. Someone else puts a really nice big chunky shot into him, and I am able to secure the kill. Could have been the IS-3 on my team that did that nice 400 plus damage to him. Was trying to respot the T-150 there, and I see that the S-51 is aiming for me. Of course, he has the gun arc to shoot over the ridge. Now you can see the really bad bloom that happens with the 1375 while you're moving. Also, my crew is not the best. Of course, that would be improved somewhat with a better crew. And you can see here that even though I went for a reload right after I killed the S-51, that I'm almost reloaded in time to engage this T-71. The reload for the 1375 is actually pretty nice. It's comparable to the T-71 actually, and the SP-1C. It kind of has that natural, I think the reload is somewhere 17-18 seconds off the top of my head. I can't remember for sure. But it's kind of that natural break in engagement time, so you will be loaded in between engagements usually. Willing to take the hit here from the 25-2 to get around behind him and flank him and ambush him. And the Bulldog was able to put one shell into the 25-2, which means I was able to do enough damage to the 25-2 before he was able to shoot me a second time. Now I'm going for a reload here. Always looking for flanking shots and side shots if you're in a tank with mobility, even bad mobility like the 1375. Not letting my shots fully aim here, and now I'm letting my last couple of shots aim in a little bit better. And you can see there that if you want your shots to be accurate, you basically have to wait twice as long for the gun to aim as the interclip reload of the gun itself if you're shooting over longer distances. So your burst damage is actually less if you want your shots to be accurate. Go for another reload, and now I'm flanking behind the IS-3 and the Bulldog. Our team did a really good job of pushing up out of the west side of the map and reacted basically the same way I did when they realized that most of the enemy team were in the center, north, and east. Willing to trade here with this Bulldog as he's on much less HP than I am. Luckily he misses his second shot on me here. Put a couple of shots into the IS-3. I willingly took that shot from the IS-3 as well as its end game, and I knew that he couldn't one-shot me. Technically that is a misplay in most other scenarios. You don't want to be trading with tanks like that. Your HP and scouts are very important, and you don't have a lot to spare. But I knew the game was won already, so I didn't mind. And I'm trying to find the gun depression and the angle to kill the IS-3, but unfortunately he goes underneath my gun line, and I'm not able to readjust in time before the T-69 on my team drops off the sniper perch there in F9 and secures the kill on the enemy IS-3. One of the other frustrating things with the AMX 1375 that anyone who has played French Scouts will know is that the gun depression is pretty frustrating. 6 degrees, that's not terrible, but it can be awkward at times. Also, the gun elevation is actually the worst, I think, on this tank of all the Tier 7 Scouts. It only has 9 degrees of gun elevation. So, for instance, if you were in this ditch here, see if I can go into free cam. If you were in this ditch here, like this IS-3, and the IS-3 was up here, I would have a really hard time getting my gun up to shoot him because I have only 9 degrees of gun elevation, and it's really awkward to shoot targets that are above you in this tank as well. Another aspect of this tank that I don't enjoy. But one of you guys, like I said before at the start of this video, requested some gameplay in this tank, and I don't think I've actually featured this tank on the channel yet, so this is a first. So hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this gameplay and got a feel for how this Tier 7 French Scout plays, and get a feel for what are the major handicaps and weaknesses of this tank. And the strengths. The strengths, of course, is it has really good camo rating for a Tier 7 Scout, and its view range is on par with most of the other Tier 7 Scouts as 390 meters base view range, which is pretty much the same as all the other Tier 7 Scouts except for the Americans and the SP-1C. But anyway, before I start rambling on too much, I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Good hunting out there, and take care.